Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, our guest is Rachel King, and she is the founder of King Law Firm Attorneys at Law. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. So tell us, what is it about law that got you excited to go to school, get your law degree, and then decide to go out on your own?
Well, nothing got me that excited other than I was attracted to some of the things that you see. I'll be the first to admit, the lawyer shows with the marble and the beautiful people, that was pretty attractive. The fame and fortune that is allegedly promised becoming an attorney, that was attractive, especially to my teenage self.
Right.
What ultimately I think has led me to stay in the law and really fall in love with the law over the years are my ability to problem solve. I'm naturally a fixer. My kids always get mad at me and say, "Mom, just don't fix it. Just let me talk to you." But I think because I have natural inclination to solve people's problems, being in the law really pairs very well with that, because I get to deal with people. That's all I deal with, right? Is people
Right.
with problems. And then they come to me and they look to me and they say, "Rachel, what do we do?" And I love problem solving, and I love helping people get out of what's arguably the most stressful situation that they will ever encounter, which is like a legal problem or a lawsuit.
Right. You talk about, that to help them get out of situations and things like that with business owners. Um, Obviously, a lot of these issues can be prevented by doing proper planning. So what are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing business owners make when they're getting into doing business for themselves?
So both professionally and personally, I own not only my own law firm, but I own other businesses. And prior to owning a law firm, I owned businesses. So coming from the angle of a business owner and also an attorney, I think hands down, this is not even legal. So, you know, I'll get to the legal stuff, but I think not treating your company as though it's a business.
Hmm.
We get really bogged down, even as attorneys, in I'm going to provide this service and that's what I'm going to focus on. And as long as I provide a good service, I'll have a good company. And that's absolutely not the case. You have to understand that the company is really its own entity and requires food and water and love and all of the TLCs in order to flourish. And one of those things that the business must have is a good service or whatever you're going to be providing. But that alone isn't going to make your business successful. And so understanding that your business is its own thing and it has to be treated as such can really be the starting point. Now, within that, we have the three things that I tell every business owner they need to have, whether you are a startup or whether you have been involved in business ownership for decades. Every single business owner needs to know an attorney. Okay.
Hmm.
And I tell people, "Oh, you should have an attorney," and they get really scared, right? Or they don't know, or they assume attorneys are expensive. Or I get, "Well, I don't have a legal issue, so I don't need an attorney." Got it. But you must know an attorney. And why must you know an attorney? Because that will set you up so that when you have that question, you already have an attorney that you can turn to that is aware of your company, aware of how you're operating and what is going on. It will allow your question to get answered a lot faster. And the faster you can get your questions answered from a legal standpoint, the better you'll be able to make decisions from a business standpoint to hopefully stay out of trouble or to resolve conflict when it first arises. So knowing an attorney, hands down, number one. Now, if you are in a business that has, cash income already, and you can, from a cash flow cash flow perspective, support having an attorney retained, even better. But if you can't, that's fine. That's most small businesses, right? So just pick up the phone, find an attorney, establish that a relationship so that they know that you exist. That would be the first thing that I would say.
So, okay, I know an attorney, but, most of the time, they're chasing ambulances. Is that the right attorney for me to have for my business?
Well, okay. So when I say know an attorney, I guess I don't mean just know one, right? I mean, it's more like establish a relationship, but that doesn't mean I really differentiate that from having an attorney on retainer, making, paying an attorney. I don't necessarily think that's what needs to happen, but you want to have an attorney that you know, like, and trust that is going to practice law in the way that's going to work with you should a problem come up, and that ultimately knows the area, right? So when we're talking about business ownership, having an attorney or knowing an attorney that does business law that will be able to help you with your structure, that's really important. And if you have to do a paid consultation, that's really money well spent, so that they know, again, oh, that's Rachel and she owns a law firm, and I've talked to her and I know what her goals are. I kind of understand what she's providing. Okay, I paid for that meeting. We can table that. And then if I have any issues as the business owner, I can call that attorney and say, oh my gosh, I just screwed up a job. I don't know what's happening. Or, oh my gosh, my employee got hurt. I don't know what to do. Or I breached contract or whatever or I'm getting sued and I did a perfect job, whatever the issues are, you already have somebody in your back pocket that you can call. And that not only is it wonderful if you need an attorney, but it can also be really a confidence boost and make you feel so much more comfortable in business operations because it's not stressful. You already have your team. Outside of that, I would say, the number two thing I think people should have is a CPA. I think you need to have a team of professionals.
I agree.
CPA, right? I can't tell you how many people say I'm going to do TurboTax, right? The same as like LegalZoom. Okay. And as an attorney, I don't care for, some of these online sources, but they work for certain people. And I'm not here to tell you as an attorney that you shouldn't use one of the online legal resources as long as you know how and what's happening. And the same I would say with something like TurboTax. If that's what you're going to do, not my business to tell you to try and talk you out of it, right? That's people's comfort zone and everybody has a different level. But know a CPA, talk to a CPA, one, so you can see at what point, what triggers you need to know. At what point should you be going from sole proprietorship to corporation if corporation isn't in the books now? At what point are there any flags that you need to be worried about from a tax perspective? I talked to a business owner a couple of months ago, maybe in June, and she said she owns a company that owns real estate investments and property management. And then she also has a W-2 income, right? So she has a full-time, outside of this, she has a full-time W-2 job at another company, and then she operates this. We were talking about taxes, and she said, no, I do TurboTaxes myself. I do all my taxes. And I said, that's really complicated. How do you know how to do that? And she's like, oh, it's easy. They walk you through everything. And I don't use TurboTax. I have an accountant. So I said, oh, well, when you have multiple properties, everything has to be allocated to that particular property. It's still a write-off, right? You have to do a roof in this house and landscaping in another house and plumbing here. All of it is a write-off, but it has to be allocated correctly, or it's supposed to be.
Right.
And it's not just a lump sum of, oh, I earned this much income and I spent this much. That was something that she didn't know. Now, ultimately, is she going to get audited? I have no idea. Maybe she'll still continue to use a software like TurboTax, but she doesn't know. I mean, I'm pretty confident in saying at this point, her taxes aren't being done correctly.
Right.
And to that end, maybe she's not even maximizing her write-offs. We 100%. Just don't know. So talking to a CPA, establishing that relationship, learning what you don't know so that then you can make a more informed decision, I think is really important. I think when you're a business owner, you need to have a team of professionals that you can turn to when you need them. And if you're not in a
100%.
position to pay for them right now and to hire them and have a CPA that handles all of your tax planning and taxes, okay, but know who they are, know when where to find them, and know what triggers you should be like, oh, okay, at this point, I think I should have a CPA. Because I'll tell you, I bet you agree with this. Nobody wants to need an attorney when they're getting sued. That's like
Correct.
they laid it $1 short. And nobody wants to realize they should have been using a CPA when they get their tax bill and they owe tens of thousands of dollars
Right.
more than they expected, right?
Right.
They laid $1 short.
Exactly. I mean, I think that so many times as potential business owners, everybody wants to save a buck.
Mhm.
And I think that the problem is that they do that at their own detriment. Kind of going back to what you're doing, in the fact that, hey, I'm going from a sole proprietor to, I'm going to set up my LLC and be an S corp. What are some of the documents I need to make sure that I have? And this is where I think, when you talk about that initial consultation and some of the work up front, especially if I need a contract, because can I pull one offline? Sure. But is that going to be right for my situation, my industry, my state even, type thing. So what are some of the documents that you would recommend to anybody who is starting out a business for an attorney to put together for you?
We'll go through a few of the biggest pitfalls, and then
Mhm.
I think we can figure out from there, talk about which documents are in place. And I just want to start by saying, if you are a new business owner and you can get ahead of it, you are probably in the top 1% of business owners.
Mhm.
If you've started a company and you haven't done that, it's not too late. I don't want anybody to
Right.
ever think, oh, I didn't do this, I'm already behind the 8 ball, who cares? No, just do it now, right? Uh, to that degree, it's always easier to be preventative rather than reactive. When you form a company or when you're in business, everybody's getting along. You're excited. If you're doing it on your own or you have a partnership, oh, we're all excited about this common goal. It is easier to get contracts and agreements and decisions made when everybody's getting along. It's really challenging, if not impossible, to have decisions made or agreements made when you're not getting along, when there's conflict. Look at a divorce. Married people make decisions all the time. They divorce and they're fighting for 5 years over, a custody, who should have the kids on Saturdays. So nobody makes decisions when there's conflict. When you open a company and you have partners and everybody's excited, that's the time to get a buy-sell agreement done. And buy-sell agreements can be expensive. I'm not going to sit here and say that they are not something that's an investment. It is an investment. But hands down, the biggest issues that I see are businesses that didn't get a buy-sell agreement, which is, of course, the agreement where the people that co-own the company have decided while they're getting along what is going to happen and how the company is going to break apart or be handled should there be a disagreement. Buy-sell agreements handle, I don't like you anymore, I don't want to be in business with you. It handles, you stole a whole bunch of money from the company, I don't want to be in business with you. It handles, you're getting divorced and I really like you, but I really can't stand your spouse. I don't
Right.
want to be in business with your ex-spouse. It
Right.
handles, you die and I don't want your heirs to come in and be in business with them. It handles all of these scenarios, which I will say most business owners have probably thought through and even spoken to their business partner about during the formation process,
Mm-hmm.
but they haven't formalized it. So now here's what happens. This is a real story. It really happened. Business made a lot of money. It was very cash flow positive, but there was a lot of transactions and millions of dollars that were going in and out over the course of the year, but it was profitable. About 3 years in, one of the owners realized that the other owner was basically embezzling through buying computers and for his kids and writing things off through the company that were really for his own personal benefit outside of the company. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Okay. And this had been going on for quite a while. I represented, in that case, the company, and we were trying to figure out how to get out of this, right? How do we keep the company whole and working, but oust this business partner that had stolen? And they didn't have a buy-sell agreement. So it was so much more challenging than if we'd had a buy-sell agreement that says, hey, you stole money, here's how you're getting out, right? I have another case, well, I had it, where husband owned all of the businesses. He was the business owner. Wife stayed home. Very, and still very typical arrangement. Wife didn't own any of the companies. And then they were getting divorced. They'd been married the entire time these companies were formed. So everything was community property, and they needed to sell the companies. This all was going on during COVID when businesses were losing a lot of money. These companies had an opportunity to sell and liquidate and get some kind of benefit. But because the divorce was going on, wife, who had never been involved in the companies, stopped the sale of every single one because of the community property interest, and they ended up just closing down out of money instead of making money.
Wow.
Could have been avoided if there was a buy-sell agreement, right? And you're simply not going to be able to go to spouse or to partner that embezzled and say, hey, I know this is all going on, but why don't you just sign this agreement real quick that says that you can bow out nicely, or that I'm only going to pay you X amount of money. It doesn't work that way. It does work when everybody's excited about starting and they're like, yeah, okay, I'll sign anything you want.
Right. Right.
That's when you get them to sign. So a buy-sell agreement absolutely is the most important document that I think business owners need to have, especially if they're in a partnership. If they're not sole proprietor, if they're the only owner, then maybe some still kind of exit plan by way of estate planning or some kind of, goal. As business owners, we plan where we want the company to go, right? I'm one of those business owners that always says, I'm going to start a shop on Etsy selling handmade bracelets. And then I immediately get to, okay, when I sell this because it becomes a Fortune 500 and it's worth all of this money and, Oprah's putting it on her show, I just always go to the best case scenario.
Sure.
And that's great. But I think business owners, especially if they're only by themselves, need to take it one step farther and say, so how am I going to get out of this? Is this going to be a retirement? Am I going to operate it until I die? Do I plan on selling it? Like, how is this business going to fall into my life plan? And then do the documents that are necessary for that.
Yeah, because I think lots of times, and I'm a sole owner, so I fall into this situation, in the fact that if you have employees and things like that, so if something were to happen to me, if I didn't have the proper planning done, then how are bills going to be paid? How are employees going to get paid? How is the business going to continue? Because it may not be that I died. It could just be that I'm incapacitated for a period of time or whatever. And it's thinking through those steps also, that lots of times, because again, anytime we're business owners, lots of times we think we're invulnerable and we're going to live forever. But as we all know, that's, death and taxes, and it's going to happen one way or another. So I think, again, going back to that planning, and I like that you're saying about the planning, because I'm big into, the right team, the right plan, because it's so important, to have your professionals and be able to talk to them, but also let them talk to each other, to make sure everybody's looking out for your best interest, for sure.
100%. And to that end, I think the third person that every business owner should have, if you had to only have three, it would be an insurance agent, a really good insurance agent. And that is because I can tell you, I can say as an attorney, I don't really care if you're a sole proprietorship or you're a corporation. Taxes to me don't really matter to me. But I think you should have a corporation because you're selling food items. And so the chances of being sued are just a lot higher when you sell
Yep.
food, right? And so they're like, oh, okay, so I need to form a corporation so that I can separate my liability. From a legal standpoint, yeah, you should. And then they go to you and they say, well, so my attorney says that I need to form a corporation. And I'm making this up. I know this is not what
Sure.
you'd actually say. I need to form a corporation because I need to separate liability. And you're like, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you look like you're going to be profitable for the next 10 years. You're a bad business owner. Like, why get into all of that? Right.
Well, if
So
they're a
you're like,
bad
I don't think
business
you
owner,
should.
they really need to get
I
this
don't,
set up.
I don't think you should set up a corporation. Maybe that's your feedback, right? Is
Right.
don't set up a corporation. So now they're like, well, my attorney's saying I need to, my tax guy's saying I don't need to. Yeah, this is where you step in with the insurance guy and you say, hey, I really need some insurance because I'm probably going to get sued because my attorney said so, just
Right.
by nature of if you own a company in
Mhm.
certain industries for long enough, you're going to get sued. But I don't want to own a corporation to separate my liability. Your insurance company or your insurance provider can come in and can get you the coverages that will offset some of the liabilities, right? And I think that is really important. And then what you said is absolutely key. Have that insurance agent talking to the attorney talking to the CPA, because everybody needs to come together. And why is this? Because my point of view as an attorney is going to be a legal point of view. Your point of view as an accountant or a CPA is hopefully going to be to maintain low tax liability. That's the consumer's concern, but
Right.
also maintaining within the confines of the law so you're not committing tax fraud. And then the insurance agent can come in and can kind of fill in the gaps where you and I are wrong, and can put things in place like, if I'm incapacitated, what happens to my company? Well, you can get insurance policies for that.
Mhm.
The easiest scenario for the business owner is that you die, right? That's
Right.
not easy for your family, but it's
Correct.
easy for the business owner because we're out of the picture, right?
Right.
But everybody else has to survive to deal with it. The harder parts as the business owner are, if I'm incapacitated and I can't run my company anymore, what happens? If I'm incapacitated and my company is my sole source of income, what happens to my
Right.
life?
Right.
And three, if I'm closing my company, how am I going to live after that, right? For retirement, that's the biggest issue I see. So having an insurance company, an insurance broker come in can really talk and handle all of those. And then you're getting a fantastic plan. You're getting a legal plan and learning how to maintain your company from a legal perspective. You're getting a tax plan and learning how to maintain your company from a tax and a financial perspective. And you're getting an insurance company to come in and say, and when things go wrong, don't worry, we've got your back. And then you can run your company with such confidence that you are going to be okay as long as you continue to provide the good service and, follow all of our advice.
Right. I think, I mean, I look at it that it's important also for everybody, all of the professionals to talk, because like in your example that you were just given, it's like, okay, if they own a restaurant, well, the insurance agent's going to insure the restaurant. You're going to tell them to have certain documents and things like that based on the restaurant. Well, from an accounting side, I'm seeing everything and I see that there's a vehicle and you're paying drivers and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that the insurance agent knows, hey, he's got drivers that are out there. Are they insured for that? Going to have them talk to you because, okay, what happens if one of his drivers gets into a serious accident? Yes, he's got the liability insurance for it, but are there other legal protections that he could get by doing whatever it is? And I'm sure at that point you're definitely saying, hey, you need to get incorporated to be able to protect yourself. So
Well, you should have been incorporated before. I have gotten a
exactly.
few calls over the years and they say, I didn't do this, but I got into an accident yesterday and I need to solve it today. And here's my buzzkill information. If it happened before, you're not solving it by
Right.
carrying it after. You'll set it up for success after. But Maintaining a corporation obviously has tax benefits. I joke with people, it's even in my fee agreement. Like, I don't do tax advice. I stay far away from tax advice. I know just enough tax information to probably get people in trouble, but I always say, go find an accountant. But
Right.
most of the time, a corporation, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or some kind of entity is going to reduce your taxes if you make any, livable income on your
Correct.
company. And then the benefit from a legal standpoint on an entity is that it's going to allow you the opportunity to separate your personal assets from your business assets, or your personal liabilities from your business liabilities. And so that's really great. And if you started a sole proprietorship, which is basically just saying, I'm going to make bracelets and sell them on the side,
Right.
that's still a sole proprietorship, right? Just a company. You can always transition over and start those protections. But even if you have them, you have to maintain them the right way. When you're a small company and you're a corporation and you're the sole owner, maybe the sole provider, if you do something wrong, you're going to get sued personally, and your company is going to get sued. And I have had many clients walk in and say, but I'm a corporation, I shouldn't be named in this personally. But you're
Right.
going to be, because you're the face of the company and you're the sole owner. The difference is, when you have a corporation that you've maintained correctly because you've set it up the way that we're talking about and you're doing everything you need to do, it's not your job to prove that you're not personally liable. It's their job to prove that you screwed up and you did what we call pierce the corporate veil. We're going through
Right.
those corporate protections, and it's not that easy to prove. So as long as business owners are following some basic rules, consulting an attorney when they, to get the understanding of how they're to operate, CPA, all that, you're probably going to be okay. But you're going to be sued, named personally, and then you have to react. And you want to make sure, again, that at the point that you have opened yourself up to liability, that you have everything in place. You have the insurance policy that's going to provide you the attorney, hopefully. You've got the protections financially. You haven't commingled any funds. The right assets are in the corporation versus in your personal name. I had a client once who was trying to maximize their taxes and put their primary residence in their business name. Okay, fine. I'm not a tax person. I don't care. However, the second that your primary personal residence went into your company's name, when your company gets sued, so does your primary residence. That's one of the
Right.
assets. And so, at least legally, how I'm looking at this is, if and when you get sued, how are we going to maintain that you personally are going to be as okay as possible? There's going to be an effect because you own the company and you live off of
Right.
that. And the company is going to maybe have to defend a lawsuit, which costs lots of money. But we want to make sure you're in your primary residence. We want to make sure that you have a car, right? We want to make sure that you have some kind of savings account that's not going to be accessible when the company gets sued. That's why we're separating them out. So to that end, I tell people, have an entity, do what you need to do, but let's not put everything in your company's name. You might as well not have a company at that point and just let them
Right.
attack your personal assets.
Yeah. I mean, I see where individuals will also take, you talked earlier about the person with all the rental properties, and it's like they take everything and throw it into one company. And then then you have, well, I could have these problems over here, but because everything's in one company, they're going to be able to get to everything, as compared to, really, dividing that liability out, to protect myself. And I think that, to your point, people think that, oh, if I do this, then I'm totally protected, and you're probably opening yourself up to more liability.
Yeah, and I think there's a balance, which is where having all your people talk is really helpful. I don't know your position, but I've had some accountants say no. I've had clients come to me and say, my accountant says that all four of my rental properties need to be in their own entity, LLC, because then it protects them for liability. And I'm like, from a legal standpoint, I'm thinking, what a nightmare. You are not going to be able to maintain properly four separate entities. One's going to be cash flow negative, one's going to be cash flow positive. You're going to be pulling money all over the place. You're going to make a mess of it because it's hard. And so sometimes I will tell people, look, why don't we just do one or two entities for, especially like we'll use the rental property for your rental properties, divide them up a little bit. So we're separating it out. But then let's just get let's bring your insurance guy in and say, we need a blanket insurance policy, an umbrella policy to cover all of them, because it is truly a balancing factor. You want to separate your liabilities, but you don't want to set yourself up for failure. And I can tell you, I've never seen business owners that own more than 3 or 4 entities that maintain them properly. They're just commingling money like crazy. And commingling money is the fastest way to pierce through, faster than anything else. You don't have your annual meetings. You make pillow talk decisions with your spouse and you don't record them. Okay, fine. That's not what's going to get you to pierce. Taking that money and using it from the rental income from property A and using it to pay for the printer machine on the property management company, that's going to cause you to get all jumbled up and be liable throughout.
Right. Especially without the proper documentation and notes and everything else. Yeah, that's for sure. All right, we've talked about a bunch of stuff, and I could go on for a long time, because I think again, we're both in the same page where, okay, you got to have a team of people and you got to let them all talk and stuff like that. What have I not asked you that you wish I had?
Owning a company is a lot of work, and it's learning to balance everything that's really probably a job all on its own. And lawyers are expensive. CPAs are expensive. Insurance is expensive. Nobody wants to pay insurance because hopefully you never use it. It's just an expense.
Right.
But nothing is more expensive and more stressful than having to defend a lawsuit. And if you've done something wrong, or even if you haven't done something wrong, the second you get sued, you are forced to defend, because otherwise you lose. So the costs of lawyers and CPAs and professionals, expensive. Take my word for it, with over 10 years of litigation experience as an attorney, it is a fraction of the cost of the defense of a lawsuit.
Yeah, totally agree with you. That's for sure. So Rachel, if people like what they hear and they want to talk to you, get more advice from you, how can they reach out to you?
My website is rachelkingattorney.com. From there, you'll be able to find all of the other podcasts and appearances that I've made, information about my new book, and direction to my website. So I would say head over to rachelkingattorney.com and subscribe and follow me. And I'm happy to answer any questions that people have to the best that I can.
There you go. All right. What's this? You say you have a new book coming out?
I do. It's not about business, but it is about financial independence when people are splitting up, right? So it's divorce focused. It's called Getting Divorced Now What? And I am really excited because I've taken all of my litigation experience over the years and put it into a book where people can get kind of behind the scenes tips on how to handle in this case, a divorce. But I will say there's a lot of good information that could be taken around. We have chapters on mediation, alternative dispute resolution, how to plan and prepare for court. So head on over there, and my book is being released actually next month, October of 2024.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed talking with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Hey, this week our guest was Rachel King, and she is the founder of King Law Firm Attorneys at Law. I will see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.